Good morning, it's Casey and welcome back to my channel, but more specifically, welcome back to my bed. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but today I am killing 3 birds with 1 stone because today is finally Ronald Day. If you've been around on my channel for a little while, then you know who Ronald is, but if you're new here, then buckle up because Ronald is more or less basically my stalker, and he is not the garden variety stalker. He's not peeking through my windows at night, at least I hope to God he's not peeking through my windows at night. I keep them covered just in case. But Ronald is the type of stalker who has a lot of influence and money and power and connections, which basically means that he can do whatever he wants, and he does. Make no mistake of that. But Ronald is also so much more than just a simple stalker. He's complicated, he's terrifying and manipulative and persistent, and functionally speaking, he's also my unwanted sugar daddy. I've talked about this several times over the life of my channel, and so I'm not going to give the full story now. If you want a more in-depth rundown, there is one in my previous video. You can go back and check that. But just the short version of it all, Ronald pays for my life. He is involved in every aspect of my life. The flat that I'm currently living in, he owns it, and for a very, very long time, I didn't know this. Last night, I went for a stroll down memory lane, and I spent several hours combing through 6 entire years worth of emails and text messages and voice memos and handwritten letters and weird, creepy internet forums, and yes, actual origami swan mail, in order to piece together the timeline and construct what I would call Ronald's perfect day. And today, I'm finally going to live it. But first, I'm going to have a shower and wash my hair. I am back. I am fully dressed. My hair is done, and I am ready for a day. The day that Ronald has set for me. But before I can go out on this little journey, I feel I need to clear the air a little bit, put some context on the table so everyone knows where I'm coming from. We all have our own cards and ducks lined up in order. So Ronald and I, prior to our arrival here, and Ronald has been here way, way, way longer than I've been here. We did not arrive at the same time. In fact, the only reason that I'm in this shitty little town is because of Ronald. Prior to even that, when we were at home, Ronald and I had a very colourful and interesting history with one another. Actually, I don't even think that I can call it a colourful history because we only met prior to my arrival in this shitty little town maybe 3 times, and they weren't long meetings, and I was not a primary participant in said meetings. Ronald was a primary participant in every single one, especially the last meeting. But those meetings, even though they weren't long, they had an incredible detrimental impact on the trajectory of both of our lives. So yeah, I guess you could say we have a very colourful history with one another. And I first heard from Ronald while I was here in August 2019. So I'd been living in this town for a couple of months at this point, just long enough for me to have kind of cottoned on to the fact that the hospital that I'm working in and am in charge of is completely and totally unhinged and unnatural. So that happened, and then 2 other things happened around the same time that are relevant. First things first, TikTok had just merged with Musical.ly, which my then best friend Tristan was very, very active on. And he was still living in London at the time, and so I was trying to find ways to stay connected to him because I am out here in this shitty little town in the middle of nowhere, the Australian outback. And so I joined TikTok. Not for fame, not for clout, just for Tristan, just these little tiny snippet-sized 30-second clips, just to keep him updated on the day-to-day runnings of my life. There was no editing, there was no filters. It was literally just me sitting almost in this exact spot. I think I had a different table at the time, but in this exact spot, talking to the camera, not dissimilar to what I'm doing at this very second. The second thing that happened is that I had just returned from my first ever Melbourne trip. And if you want more context on that, like I said, go watch my last video. But I had just returned from my first ever Melbourne trip, and while I was there, they had wanted, very earnestly suggested, I guess you could say, that I start keeping a journal about my experiences. And the moment that they said that, I knew that that was never going to happen because I have tried about 3 dozen times over the course of my life to keep a journal, and it never lasts longer than a week. My brain is just not wired to record my experiences in written form. But what I could do is just continue making these 30-second clips because I was already filming them for Tristan anyway. So I just started making them a little bit more broader, a little bit more public, just a little bit more generalized instead of focused towards him. Keep in mind that this is 2019, okay? This was pre-COVID. This was pre the TikTok boom. TikTok was not yet this hyper slick monetized machine that it is today. But even back then, with TikTok being maybe a 99th of what it is today in terms of popularity, I was doing reasonably well. And I found myself really starting to enjoy it. It felt like a little project. It felt like a little creative outlet. It felt like something that was purely mine. And back in those days, I didn't have a lot of things that were purely mine. And after about 6 weeks, maybe, I had amassed a whole 1,100 followers, which might not sound like a lot now, but back then, those were big numbers, okay? I was basically internet famous. Most of my followers fell into one of two categories. You had the conspiracy theorists, and then you had the amateur paranormal investigators. And as far as I could tell, only a few of my followers were bots, which was something that I was very, very proud of. Of all my followers, the one most vocal in my comment section was, from as far as I could tell just by looking at his profile, a 99-year-old Dead by Daylight killer main from South Korea whose profile picture was Patrick Star, and his username was your biggest fan. Flash forward to this exact time of year, a couple of weeks before Halloween, and I receive a parcel at the hospital where I work. And it was this big, giant, rectangular-sized box that was wrapped up like a Christmas present, like full-on festive wrapping paper, a giant red bow in the middle, and the return address was one that I didn't recognize. And the sender's name? Your biggest fan. You can call me stupid, and I won't argue with it, because I did not mentally make the connection between my follower, your biggest fan, and this rectangular, dead cat-sized Christmas present that has just shown up. Something in the back of my mind was whispering very quietly but very clearly that to accept this gift would be akin to opening Pandora's box. That if I was to open it, that it would mark a point of no return. That the course of my life would quietly and permanently change the moment I peeled back the tape. So I made a decision right then and there that I would never ever open the box, come what may, which lasted for about all of 6 hours because it was a very, very quiet night at the clinic. There was no emergencies, there was no patients, there was no chaos. It was just me, this box sitting on the reception desk, and the clicking of the clock. The turning of the screw, if you would. And inside the box was 3 things. First, a brand new laptop computer. Second, a weird little device that I didn't recognize at the time, but then Nate would later identify as a Sat-Fi global network router, because apparently that's just a normal thing that people send in the post. And third, a handwritten note, which I have scanned and uploaded to said laptop that he sent me, which is sitting right here, which I've scanned and uploaded a lot of the shit that Ronald has sent me over the years. I basically have a dossier on him, which I have no doubt he has one on me too. Anyway, the letter reads, "Hello, you probably don't remember me, but I've been watching your TikToks. I'm really digging the way you craft your story, but I have a few small suggestions. Right now, the main character, Casey, doesn't really do anything, does she? It's more like things just keep happening to her, and her only role is to witness them. It's all very Arthur Dent. But I think the story would be more interesting if you took a more active role in what's happening at the hospital. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I thought I might send a little something to help with the filming process and make it a little bit easier on you. Hope all is going well for you. Sincerely, your biggest fan." Now, obviously, I didn't love the fact that somebody from the quote, internet, unquote, had managed to track me down at work. But I wasn't thinking in my head, oh, this is clearly Ronald. No, I was just thinking that some overly familiar, creepy weirdo from the internet who was, over-invested in what I was saying had tracked me down. Unusual and weird, yes, but not dangerous. Brings me to activity 1 of Ronald's day of benign chaos. So this right here, before your very eyes, is the exact laptop that Ronald purchased for me and sent through the mail in October 2019. It has been my daily laptop ever since. I have gotten incredible use out of it. It has served me very, very well to the degree that it is now in very poor working condition. And what I mean by that is you can probably see that the on-screen keyboard is up, and that is because the T and the Y button unfortunately no longer work on this laptop, and the E button is not long behind them. And so the first activity that we're going to be engaging with today on Ronald's day is we're going to go and buy me a new laptop. It is well overdue, and I like to believe that it is something that Ronald would have wanted for me. Not that he's dead, that makes it sound like he's dead, but he's not dead, unfortunately. Okay, I am back. I did not end up buying a laptop because while I was in the middle of looking at them, Nate phoned me, and when I was telling him what I was doing, he said, don't do it, because he has the perfect one in mind for me that has everything I need in it. Good specs, cheap, a rainbow keyboard, everything that I would need, which frankly is all I care about. I don't need it for anything serious. I just need a laptop that is capable of allowing me to correctly edit my videos and let me play House Flipper and Planet Coaster 2, which he swears up and down that he knows the perfect laptop for just that. And so I trust him, and I'm going to leave it in his self-proclaimed capable hands, and we will see where that leads me. I have got myself a pizza. Why do I have pizza? Because it's Ronald's Day of Chaos. Put two and two together, it's not that hard. However, in saying that, I also have one of these little lemon ice creams that look like a lemon. And this has nothing to do with Ronald. They just sell these at the pizza place. And I'm typically a very loyal peach girl, but they've never had the lemon ones before, and I also like lemon, so I brought myself one. Anyway, let's see if my pizza is any good, because sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not so good. But we will find out. Oh. I don't know, I think that looks pretty good, to be honest. I think that looks pretty good! Ow! Right about now, you're probably thinking, dude, what's up with the pizza? And I will tell you what's up with the pizza and how it is relevant to Ronald's Day of Chaos. It was a Friday night, and I know for a fact that it was a Friday night because both Nate and I were off that night, and Ashton hadn't started working at the hospital at this point in time, which means that Dr. Kingsley had to be the doctor on duty. So he only works on Friday nights, ergo, it was a Friday night. It was dark outside, the kind of quiet, still darkness that only occurs in small towns after 7:30 p.m. When all of a sudden, I hear a knock on my door. It was a pizza delivery guy, which might not sound unusual on a Friday night, except for the fact that I had not ordered a pizza. I don't even particularly like pizza. I know, watching me just eat a pizza probably goes to the contrary of that, but the reality is, unless it's like that kind of pizza, which I don't buy because, well, that one's not expensive. That one only cost me $9. But in general, those kind of pizzas are really expensive, and I don't like eating the normal pizza, like the Pizza Hut, the Domino's pizza, because they make me feel like garbage for like 3 whole days afterwards. But nonetheless, there was the pizza delivery guy standing on my doorstep, holding a box and looking very, very unusually nervous. But you got to keep in mind that this is 2020. This is peak pandemic era. Everybody's jumpy. And so I just chalk it up to COVID anxiety. Either that or, just being a pizza delivery guy in this town is already a high risk occupation. So if anything, I would have been more suspicious if the pizza delivery guy wasn't nervous and jumpy. We go back and forth for a couple of minutes, me insisting that I have not ordered a pizza. I don't particularly want a pizza. And him insisting that, yes, actually, this pizza is prepaid for, and he's double checked that it is the correct address. And so we go back and forth, and eventually he just starts pleading with me, like, just take the damn pizza. If we get a phone call from someone saying that they're missing their pizza, we will send another one out. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, fine, whatever. Give me the pizza. I will take the damn pizza. I will bring it inside. I will put it in the fridge. Worst comes to worst, I will take it to work tomorrow and Nate can have it for lunch. So I bring the pizza inside. I set it down on the bench, and I noticed that on the receipt that's taped to the box, it says that it is a medium meat lovers pizza with extra pepperoni. And I was like, you know what, that actually sounds really nice, because in our town, the local pizza place, the pizza that they make, they put like kebab meat on top of it, like doner kebab meat, and it kind of dries all the oil out. So if there's any normal pizza that I like, it is that pizza. So like, you know what, I actually think I want a slice of this. So I opened the pizza box and there is no pizza in the pizza box. Inside the box is another gun and a white envelope. There is no cheese, there is no crust, there is no garlic bread, there is no extra pepperoni. There is just cold, deadly, hard metal. Now, bear in mind, my biggest fan has vanished into the ether. I have not heard a word from him in months. And to be honest, I have more or less forgotten that he even existed in the first place. And so my first thought is not, oh my God, Ronald is back. No, my first thought was, how the hell did I accidentally get involved in an arms deal? Because honestly, that tracks. That is exactly the kind of thing that would happen to me while I'm trying to enjoy a cozy Friday night at home watching Desperate Housewives. And all I can really think in that moment is, somewhere out there in my unhinged, feral little town, there is a very real person who right now is waiting on a very real gun to be delivered to their doorstep. Someone who is about to be deeply disappointed when that fails to materialize. And this poor pizza delivery man, who is probably chronically overworked and chronically underpaid, has just earned the very coveted title of the worst arm dealer in organized crime within our shitty little town. You know, I appreciate service workers and everything they do, especially in COVID times. And this was the heart of COVID times. And so I thought, you know, I'm just going to do him a solid. I'm going to take this pizza box outside right now. I'm going to place it on top of my bin in plain sight. That way, when he inevitably realizes his mistake and he comes back to grab it, we can avoid that whole awkward, hey, you know, about that wink wink pizza box, and he can just take it and go about his business, and I don't have to be any of the wiser. So I go outside, I place the pizza box on top of the bin lid, and just as I'm doing that, Nate pulls up and he jumps out of the car and he takes one look at me, takes one look at the pizza box, and he goes, "Oh my God, you ordered pizza without me. How rude." I'm like, no, you have completely misread the situation. That is not a pizza. That is a gun. But he's not listening to me. He could not care less. He has gotten out of his car and he has come over to the bin and he's opened the pizza box. What he was planning to do, eat the imaginary, bin pizza, I don't know. But obviously there's no pizza in there, and he just stands there looking at it for a second and he goes, "Well, have you read the letter?" "No, Nate, I have not read the letter. Why would I read the letter? Why would I voluntarily involve myself further in something that is very clearly a crime?" And he just says, "Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's marked for Casey's eyes only, so I don't know, maybe you should." And I have to admit, that was a very fair point. So I took his advice and I opened the letter, and here's what it said, because I have it opened down here. "Dear Casey, sorry for the unorthodox delivery. It appears they are monitoring the mail in the hospital now. I needed to take precautions to ensure this letter found its way to you. Very sad to hear about your leg, but I suppose that's why you have two of them. I personally wouldn't know, as my own legs do not work. It's been a little while since your last story, and I'm beginning to think it may be time for a sequel. You should get ready, as I believe this part will have a lot more action than the last. I don't know if you still have the gun that I sent you, but just in case you've misplaced it, here's another. No need to thank me. I have plenty more where that came from. By the way, Dres Levesque has been very quiet lately. I don't like that. Keep an eye out for him, and don't let anybody sneak up behind you. Stay safe. I love watching you work. Signed, your biggest fan." So yeah, that is the reason why I brought pizza for lunch today. Not the same pizza, mind you. Like I said, it's a completely different pizza, but a pizza nonetheless. So Ronald, in your honor, a royal pep. Editing Casey here. Hey. Now, this is where the video goes a little bit off the rails, because I was going to take you out to the cult compound. And I did. I did take you out to the compound. Now, if you don't know, when I first moved here, Nate was a member of a murder cult who brought one of the old cattle stations on the outskirts of our town. Well, I call them a murder cult. He calls it a murder religion, but potato, potato. Anyway, they all themselves. at the end of 2019. And so Nate lived there on his own until 2021. And he lived in his van, he's a van lifer, quote unquote, and he populated the compound with mannequins and metalwork structures that he had made himself. Then he moved in with me for a little while, which was really awkward because, again, I live in a one-bedroom flat and I like to say that Nate is my common law platonic husband, so, that was all fine. But he doesn't live with me now. He has moved his van and parked it at the bottom of Cal's property, and honestly, I think that's probably for the best. I think that is the best outcome for him. A couple of years ago, another cult moved into the compound. This one was less murdery and just more new-aged. But the reason that I wanted you to come with me to the compound and for me to show you what it looked like today is the compound is where Ronald and I had our first big showdown, where it was truly established once and for all that we are not on the same side, which was always clear for me, by the way, because, fudge Ronald, like I say in the video description of every single video I've ever made, fudge Ronald. But I think it was the first time that he came to the realization for himself. Anyway, I have not been anywhere near the compound since March this year. And so I was completely unaware coming up there today that it has been completely and totally abandoned. There is nobody there. And all the doors are open, the lights are still on, it hasn't been ransacked at all. There's just nobody there. So I kind of got distracted a little bit while I was there. But I will show you around all the same. We can trespass together. I don't spend as much time explaining things and showing you the area where I wanted to show you. I mean, I show you a little bit at the end. It's a giant tree. You will know when you see it. And this part also has nothing to do with Ronald. Well, one of them does. He owns one of these buildings, but it's not featured in this video. It's down one of the side roads. But these are all the government buildings on the outskirts of our town. I don't know why they're here. I don't know anybody who works in them. I don't know anybody who knows anybody who works in them. But I need to drive past them to get to the compound, so I thought I would show them to you anyway. Especially this one. It is an outpost for the National Library, supposedly. Why there would be something like that in our town, and why it would require armed guards, I don't know, but there you go. The next thing that I had to do, I had to stop at the book house, which was part of Ronald's Day of Chaos initially. There was a reason that I was going to stop here for that, but by this point I was so distracted by the disappearance of Cult 2.0 that I actually didn't even care about this video in its original form anymore. Then I went to the thrift shop next door, which everything on the lawn that you can see here is $2 each, and then because I was already here, I went across the road to what I call the Hoarder House, which is another op shop, but there is no process, there is no organization. They have no idea what they have. I swear some things in here have been in here since, like, the 80s. It reminds me of those horror movie houses where they store all the victims' belongings after they kill them. Like, do you need a secondhand toilet seat that has clearly been pre-used? Ugh. I always leave here feeling dirty. How lovely, how nice. Look what I brought home with me. What a joke. But I didn't see any reason not to because it was for free. This is the 1985 September issue of Australian Vogue, and I now have it in my house. But that is not the activity. We have got activities to continue on with the festives of Ronald's Day of Chaos. That is to say that we're going to watch a movie. Specifically, we're going to watch this movie. So this is Beautiful, starring Minnie Driver and directed by Sally Fields. And you're probably thinking, Casey, that is a very random movie to be watching on Ronald's Day of Chaos. And you would be correct. However, I received this movie case from Ronald. Not the movie, okay? The DVD inside of here is not the actual movie. It is a home burn DVD containing footage of something that I'm not going to discuss on this channel. But nonetheless, I received the case from Ronald. I have always found the choice of movie case to send that DVD over to be incredibly fascinating. Has Ronald seen this movie? Is it one of his favorites? Did he enjoy it? Does he own it? Is that why the DVD in here is not of the movie? I don't know. Okay, I have no idea. But nonetheless, he selected this movie case and he sent it over to me with a corresponding letter, which I will read for you. So the letter on this occasion said, "Dearest Casey, what a wild ride it has been," and there is an exclamation mark. By the way, this is a handwritten letter. I just want to point that out in case you didn't realize from the fact that it came in a physical DVD case. It is a handwritten letter. But yeah. What a wild ride it has been, exclamation mark. Glad to see you haven't lost your edge. But before you go and get comfortable again, I feel the need to remind you that the real fight isn't over. There's another player in town, one smart enough to find a way to collect and sell something, and something tells me that A wasn't his first, it's a handwritten letter. I can't read it. He has, really fancy handwriting. Anyway, things have been fun so far, but it seems that a war is brewing. Maybe make sure you're on the right side. I like to think that you're on my side. Spoiler alert. As I said, I am not on his side. Maybe you haven't picked a side. Maybe you need some convincing. Maybe this is the gift that will finally motivate you. I hope you can always trust me. I will see you again soon. Signed, your biggest fan. Now, this was not an easy movie to get my hands on. It is not on any streaming services, and as far as I can tell, it is out of print, so I can't just go down the street and buy it. I had to put Nate onto the case to search around for it, and luckily he has succeeded this case around, and he has managed to find me a copy of the DVD, which is not a physical copy, but we will watch it all the same.
2 days later.
Okay, hello scary stock footage. I had a whole other 2 sections that I was going to film to finish off Ronald's Day of Chaos. We were going to make origami to celebrate the time he went through a whole phase of leaving me messages in origami swans all over the place. And then we were going to go on Neopets and do our dailies to celebrate the time I didn't hear from Ronald for a year and a half until one night he just started messaging me on my Neopets guild message board for everybody in my guild to see. But alas, I told Nate about the cult compound and things got out of control very, very quickly. It involved criminal trespass in the dark, Blair Witch Project-style tree decorations in the woods, and a trip to the local police station. So forgive me if the video took a backseat to all of that action. Nonetheless, I need to close it off, so this is the message that Ronald left me on Neopets that night, randomly, a year and a half after his last correspondence with me, which feels like a good place to leave it because it was also the first time he used his actual name instead of his online persona. So, here we go. Not even close, Moose. I'm not surprised they let your comments stay. It's not just wrong, it's wrong enough to throw the normies off the trail of the truth. The reality is that Toto has been replaced. He wasn't sent there to scare Kafi into selling, he was sent there to kill him. But the transformation is a tricky process, and sometimes they're duds. Doesn't matter. The collector has time on his side, and he is perfecting the process. Casey, I know you're reading this. I want you to know that I've been enjoying your story immensely, but we are nearing the climax. Be smart, and remember that you can't just trust anybody in this world. This forum is now full of them. They're all just replacements, brainwashing you into thinking your decisions are not really your own, steering you away from the truth and off a cliff like a dog chasing a parrot. You cannot listen to the voices online. If you stay alive long enough, perhaps we will cross paths once more. If not, thank you for your stories. Always your biggest fan, Ronald. And that is that. And with that, this is Casey signing off for the night. As always, stay weird out there, stay safe, and don't join a cult. Seems like a good idea at the time, I know, but they're a lot more trouble than they're worth. Okay? Okay. Good night.